Monak, work development organizer for the union iron workers from Local 55. Rob, can you give us a brief overview of your company?
Well, good morning, everybody. So again, my name is Rob Monak from Ironworkers Local 55, and we're a building trades union. So we work for a multitude of contractors, and you know, as my introduction says, this is our 118th year. I'm sorry, Heather, and you had said, could we, you know, further more about the company? Correct?
Yeah, just explain what the Ironworkers Local 55 is. You know.
Sure. And so again, we're the International Association of Bridge, Structural, Reinforcing, and Ornamental Ironwork. So everybody's been to Cedar Point. We put the roller coasters up. Everybody's probably seen the orange Cocosing trucks up and down the highways. We set the bridges in the heavy highway section. Of course, schools. Again, it's a building trades union, so we're involved with projects, large and small, and it's our 118th year, and it's a great time to get in to this kind of work if it's for you.
So all the students here tested high on STEM, this area. So what kind of workers are iron workers? What kind of like skills? Are they welders? Can you explain to them some of those things?
Yes, so it's very much an academic thing too. I mean, everybody's seen the picture of the guys taking lunch on a beam, for example. But you have to understand how to put that stuff together. So if someone sets a set of blueprints in front of you, you know, you've got to be able to read those blueprints and put together a finished product. So yes, the science, the math is insanely important. It's calculating sling angles, working load limits, reach, rig, and capacity. There's a lot of neck up, if you will, to our line of work, and it's neat to see once that stuff comes together. Then of course, you know, you got to be on your tools. You got to put that stuff together. You got to be able to weld up a bridge. There's a lot of layers to it. You just got to get in and start to unfold those layers as you go through an apprenticeship, and then as your time out in the field matures, you know, you have those aha moments where that stuff makes sense. But pay attention to your teachers. Pay attention to math. I'm telling you all, it's very, very important. A lot of the kids that test into our apprenticeship, they struggle with the math. So give yourself a hand up and stay on track with that kind of stuff.
So Rob, real quick, a lot of students might not like math. Can you explain to them, in my experience, if they are shown why they need it and the hands-on, it comes a little easier, applicable? So like, I don't want to scare some people away.
Sure.
Do you feel it's easier to learn when you're doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you join our organization and you walk your career path, you're taught that, and then you apply that out in the field. And it just like anything else, the repetition is key. And you know, ironwork is it's a physical job, you know, and there's a limited amount of movements in the human body. So I mean, as you advance through your career, you know, you want to be able to get better and better with your skill sets, not necessarily just your hands, but also what you can do with planning a job, executing, and putting stuff together. So
what does a day look like, you know, as an iron worker?
Sure. Number one, you got to be there on time. You know, work starts at 7, not 7:01. With a good attitude, you got to be fit for duty, and get your belt on and hit the top. And you know, it depends on where you're at. You know, if you're an apprentice, or whether you're a journeyman, or whether you're a foreman, a general foreman, superintendent, it just kind of depends on what job role you have for that particular project. But you are out there, you're on your tools, you're putting together material, you're buzzing up a weld, whatever it's got to be. Of course, you get your breaks throughout the day. And when you're done, at the end of the day, you turn around and you look at what you did. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat to see that progress along. So
that's great. So what advice would you give to these graduating high school seniors looking to get into your field of work?
This is not a gig economy. This is our 118th year. If you start something, finish it. And if you're serious about it, take it seriously. And we'll You don't have to know nothing day one. We'll get you all the knowledge and the repetitions you need, but there's some intangibles, and that's, attendance, attitude, work ethic, and coachability. You got to be willing to listen, and again, take it seriously, because you'll rise higher. Those that do take it serious, that reflects directly out to our contractors, and it directly reflects into their progression through an apprenticeship. So step up.
That's great. At the end, we're going to have some questions and answers, but feel free right now, students, if you have any questions for Rob, throw it in the chat, and at the end, we'll make sure we ask this to all of our panelists. And I don't know if you see the screen, that $57.26 an hour, like my eyes would be bulging if I was a high school senior. So maybe you need to know more about that.
And that's a total money package. That's with your wages and your benefits.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate it. And we'll probably get back to you at the end with some questions. All right. All right. Next is Russ Cortelli. He's the principal, geographic director, principal of the Cleveland office for OHM. And Russ, you want to tell us a little bit about your organization?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Great opportunity for young students. I'm glad to see that a program like this is available. So thanks for having me. But OHM Advisors, we are a full service architects, engineers, planners, and construction services. And roughly 517 offices, as it says. But we have a very broad spectrum of technical folks at various levels across all these various disciplines within those services identified. Company's been around since 1962. We have both public sector and private sector clients. We do projects anywhere from developing a park to building and designing a hotel. For example, recently in Nashville, Tennessee, a boutique hotel high rise. So we're a pretty broad spectrum of services in what is called the AEP/C industry. So this is pretty, I guess, advanced in the sense of that we are performing. We could take projects from cradle to grave, we call it, from concept to construction completion. We don't physically build it, but we'll do the inspection. So from initiation of concept to design to construction inspection.
So what type of people work for your company? What type of jobs are they?
Yeah, there's a broad, as I'm trying to share, and I knew that's an important thing to understand, because when we think of STEM, we know there's so many directions to go, but the type of background and folks we have on our team include civil engineers, structural engineers, mechanical, electrical engineers, folks in the construction industry, architects, interior designers, CAD technicians, folks involved with water and wastewater treatment, geographic information specialists and IT folks, surveyors, landscape architects. It's a very, very broad within our firm.
Okay, I'm sure that was a wide range of jobs. So I'm sure many of them, after taking your U Science, if any of those sound interesting, or maybe when you look at your profile and what jobs match, maybe one of those jobs matches for you. What advice would you give to a graduating high school senior looking to get into your field of work?
I guess recognizing that it is such a diverse field, but for certain, the best thing to do is look for opportunities to shadow, get the actual opportunity to experience it, either for whether it's an hour or a day or whatever, but get some real experience just witnessing it, not actually doing it. That's important, as we all know. That's helpful in determining whether you have some passion or excites you at all. And I'll share with you, as a high school student, I had the chance to go to an Air Force base and do some surveying, just to really, raw, but just to witness it. And that kind of excited me into the civil engineering world.
That's great. Let me pull real quick the students. If you can do reactions, raise your hand or say yes. How many of you actually have done a job shadowing experience already? I see a couple of thumbs ups. Some say no.
Jaden is asking how to do it.
Oh, how do I do reactions?
Yeah.
It should be in your bottom toolbar, guys, like where it says, mute and chat. There should be a reactions button. It depends on what version of Zoom you have. If not, you can throw it in the chat room if you don't have that. But I would definitely highly suggest that you either shadow, and if you've already shadowed, trying to find internships. And after today, we're going to be sending you all the contact information for all of these panelists, and you can contact them directly, or we can let you know if there's any opportunities with them. So Russ, anything else you'd like to share with us, possibly how you got where you're at?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So just to accelerate that and be brief, but my background started out in actually studying mechanical engineering. I switched into the civil engineering space, but as I said, we should back up, that those initial opportunities as a high school student excited me to think about engineering. So then in college, I went off and finished my civil engineering degree at Ohio Northern University. I'm from upstate New York originally, been in Ohio since 1999. But in any event, I'm a licensed professional engineer, and I have a master's in project management. And to grow into the design, the field, and to grow into the career path, we all know this. There's several steps along the way, and recognizing that you're going to have various ways to reach those challenges, but the best way is, of course, one, willing to challenge yourself, and then don't hesitate to pivot when that happens. So that I'll say that those things happen to me along the way, where you pivot and understand your best skill set, and then benefit from that and utilize your network, look for windows of opportunity to explore your strengths and passion. And again, yes, we all hear this as well. When you find something you think you're passionate about, dive into it and go for it, because that makes, and Rob, I really appreciate your presentation because I sense your passion for what you're doing. That makes your energy to want to be successful raised way up, and you will enjoy your career and your life a lot more. So sorry to lecture, but.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Russ, for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next, Ryan, I am not sure yes, I see Ryan. Okay, great. Ryan Sautter is a biomedical technician supervisor and clinical engineering engineer at Firelands Regional Medical Center. Ryan, can you tell them a little bit about your organization, and I would think more so about your department as well? Ryan, you're on mute. Okay, I think Ryan is having some technical difficulties. Let me see if he can. Okay, we're going to come back to Ryan if he lets me know that it's working. So we're going to go to our next panelist. Chuck, I'm going to introduce you to Chuck Plum. He's the president of R&D Equipment. And Chuck, can you tell us a little bit about your organization and what type of workers work for you?
Yes, Heather, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Glad to see there's so many people interested. R&D Equipment is located in Norwalk, Ohio. We're a small company and we build machinery. And we've been here about a little over 40 years. And primarily, we have our own line of printing machines. One of our key machines is an egg carton printer. So if you've ever gone to the grocery store and grabbed a carton of eggs, if you look at the carton, all the decoration that's on the carton, our machines do that. So we sell those all over the world. We also do custom machines. And Heather, were you going to show the video of the pick and place? Here's an example of a custom machine that we built for a battery company. It's picking up titanium plates and sorting them. And this really relates to STEM because of all the complexity that goes into design and build. You take a pile of components, computers, electrical equipment, you can take raw steel, aluminum, and you take all these things and put them together and you make a machine that's useful for people. So our company makes machines like this. We'll make the printing machines we make. We also do a lot with ultraviolet curing, which means you have these real powerful UV lamps. And if you have a coating like hardwood, your hardwood floors, you'll put the coating on the floor and then the UV comes along and it cures that. So it makes it real hard and glossy so that it gives a nice finish to the material. So there's a plethora of various machines that we make for all kinds of industries, automotive, the wood industry, obviously the printing and decorating industry. And this machine here, as you can see, is using vacuum cups to pick up these titanium plates. And it sorts them and stacks them. There's also graphite plates in between that have to be separated. So that's an example of some of the things that we do.
So Chuck, can you tell me, so you have machinists, I'm assuming?
I was actually, I went to BGSU for mechanical engineering. So I have a mechanical engineering background and primarily management.
Okay, and what about the people who work for you? Are there machinists? Are there welders? Like what are the type of people that work for you?
Absolutely. We have machinists because we have some CNC equipment and some manual equipment. We need welders. We need assemblers. We need people that understand pneumatics and hydraulics. We need electricians and electrical engineers. We need CAD designers. And then of course, at the management end, you've got all the infrastructure that supports all that. You've got the purchasing, you've got, just all the accounting issues and other various positions to support the shop.
Sure. So as a graduating senior that's skilled in the STEM field, what advice would you give them, getting into your field of work? Do they need to go to a four-year college? Do they need to go to trade school? Like, what would you give? What advice would you give?
Any and all of the above, Heather. First off, really take advantage of your primary education. Hopefully as seniors, you took your schooling serious because that's preparing you. That's giving you the foundation to be able to learn the next level of things. You can go to trade schools. Trade schools are great. Any level of college is helpful and useful. And the more we get into the technology, the more complex a lot of this technology becomes. When you look at a company like SpaceX that can launch a rocket and then after 8 minutes, turn that booster around and bring it back and landing, think about all that went into designing that and all the math that went into it. So I would definitely remember that you're going to be a student for the rest of your life. So always be willing to learn and to keep that curiosity and just absorb everything that people are teaching you, because it'll always be helpful somewhere along the line in your career.
Okay, great. And then how did you get to where you are, Chuck? Just, I know you've worked hard.
Well, what interested me in having my own business was my father had his own company. He was a contractor. And even when I was in high school, he made me an officer of his company, hoping that I would take over the business one day. Unfortunately, he had a massive coronary when he was pretty young and had to give up the business. But that spark was lit in me. So I just went to work for a company that's no longer around called Mylan Steel and worked in the fab shop. And like Rob, I used to do a lot of structural fabricating, and it was actually a lot of fun. I loved the structural work. And I became a foreman in the shop. In fact, one of the last jobs I did there was I fabricated all the steel that put up the Sandusky Mall. I was the foreman in charge of that in the fab shop. So I have a great appreciation for Rob's, where he's coming from. But you just, they claim that to be an expert, you need to put 10,000 hours of effort, intense effort, into being an expert at something. So if you find your passion, you really like what it is, intensely go after it. And someone in the marketplace will certainly want that skill level, and you'll be able to make a very good living at it. So you've just got to keep striving and driving, and you go to various companies, you learn things, you move on, and basically it's an evolution. It's a process. It's certainly not an event.
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah.
Do you know Duke?
I did know Duke.
And Gail, I worked a lot for Sandusky Mylan Steel.
Yeah, that's where I got my start in fabricating.
Yeah.
We'll have to have lunch sometime, Rob.
Yeah.
See, we're not only connecting students, we're connecting panelists. It's awesome.
Yeah, old Sandusky Mylan Steel, man.
That's great. Well, thank you, Chuck, for your time. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to our next panelist. Our next panelist is Luis Ceja from Danmar Company. Luis, welcome. And can you give us a little bit of information about what Danmar is and what they do?
Sure. So actually, interestingly enough, next year, Danmar will be celebrating their 50th anniversary. So we've been around for quite some time now. But pretty much what we do is we use our group of engineers and production floor employees to design, develop, and to manufacture electronic products. We have a pretty diverse customer base currently. And to name a few of the industries that we provide goods to, we provide goods to industries such as the automotive industry, medical industry, and to military. And so on the automotive end, what we do is we provide lighting assemblies to companies such as Nissan, Toyota, GMC, and Lexus. And then in the medical industry, we work on the red medical cots for Furno that you might see in the back of an ambulance. And so just a couple of goods that people might be aware of. But our main source of business is for our parent company, Austin Powder. And for them, what we do is we work on electronic blasting equipment. This allows them to make controlled explosion relatively easy, but also safe. And so essentially pretty much do anything from making electronic products for cars to blowing up rocks and then everything in between.
That's great. It sounds like fun, actually.
Very much.
Yeah. So tell us a little about you and what a day in your life looks like at your current job.
A day in my life, I am a financial analyst, so I'm a bit different from the rest of the people who work here. But a day in my life now, I balance budgets and do financial reporting, but I also have recently gotten involved in the production aspect of things. And so I've gone out to the cells themselves and I watch the employees, they solder goods, they mold those goods, a bunch of wire harnesses, things of that nature. And so pretty much it's a bunch of assembling product for them. And then we then take that product and ship it out to our customers for end use.
So the employees that are on the line doing things, what kind of skill sets do they need?
They definitely need to be technologically applicable. So like I had said before, soldering wires to a printed circuit board. That's one of the operations. You then take that wire to a molding machine and you put a mold over those, over the soldered wires to protect them. So they definitely need to know how to assemble the goods, but they don't need to know any of that day one. That's a lot of the stuff that we do. We train them in how to do that.
So I'm assuming you have a varied amount of positions there, engineers as well. Okay, that's what I'm assuming. I'm stereotyping, but you look young. Can you share with everyone how you got to where you're at, and then also some advice for these seniors about to graduate?
Definitely. So I went to college directly after high school. I went to Kent State University, and I did not know what I wanted to do at all for the first couple of years. I switched my major 5 times, but I ended up landing on finance and I fell in love with it. And so pretty much the advice that I have for anybody who's looking to get into Danmar, we are predominantly engineering based. So any engineering background would be great. We also are looking to add to our front office as our business grows. And so our front office deals a lot with quoting future jobs, purchasing materials, and then myself, I ensure that the operations are both efficient as well as profitable. And so as the company continues to grow, we will look to add on that end as well.
That's great. Anything else you want to provide? Actually, Danmar is in Norwalk, Ohio, just so everyone knows where you're located. But anything else you'd like to share?
Pretty much for the seniors, you know, I like what one of the panelists had said before about, you know, paying attention to what it is that you're learning about and then falling in love with whatever it is that you find interesting. You know, go down the rabbit hole. Like for me, it took a while. I experimented a lot with the career paths that I wanted to take. But when I found something, I went down the rabbit hole and it ultimately led to a job not 2 months after graduation. And so definitely pay attention a lot to your studies. And when you find that one thing that really sparks your interest, follow it.
That's great advice. All right, thank you so much. Actually, Ryan, who is the biomedical technician at Firelands, is having some technical difficulties. So what we'll do is we'll make sure we either video Ryan or put in writing in some handouts. Yes.
I'm sorry, Ryan messaged me and said he's good. He just doesn't have video.
Oh, okay. So Ryan, are you able to talk?
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Awesome. Okay, let me go back to your screen and go away. Why don't you just give an overview and some advice? We have about 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I just had this video camera hooked up yesterday. I've never used it. It didn't work right.
That's
so yeah,
okay.
I work at Firelands. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I work at Firelands Health Center, Firelands Community Hospital. I work in the clinical engineering department. Many names. They call us biomeds, they call us biomedical technicians, they call us healthcare management technicians. You're pretty much a jack of all trades. What we do is we maintain, we repair, we calibrate all the medical equipment in the hospital. It goes from the simplest thing to fixing a blood pressure cuff to fixing an MRI machine, CT machine, I mean, anything. Treadmill in the physical therapy areas. I mean, we work on sterilizers, anesthesias, any piece of equipment that touches the patient that we take care of. And that leads to our most important job is patient safety, like everybody else who works in the hospital. So we have to make sure there's no electrical shock potential in any piece of equipment that touches the patient. Obviously, there's specs. You got to be within specs for every piece of equipment. And also, since the equipment's usually hooked up to a human, you have to be, obviously safety is #1. So there is some times where, let's say they're doing surgery in the OR, you get called in, anesthesia's not working, vital signs not reading. So there's sometimes a little bit of pressure. You got to go in the room while the patient's on the table and look at the piece of equipment, repair it if you can, or try to do the best you can. kind of unique there, and you're
So,
all over the hospital. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. So what's your background, Ryan?
My background, well, this is my, let's say, second career, because I started at a steel processing plant in Delta, Ohio, got laid off and wanted to find a job there, you know, that you don't get laid off at. So I went to Owens Community College. It's an associate's degree in it's biomedical electronics. And you do an internship for a year, and I got hired at Firelands. And I love it. I've always liked taking stuff apart, learning how something works. And that's pretty much what you do here. And it never gets boring because it's a different piece of equipment every day. You're never working on the same thing usually, and it's always like something different. You're all around the hospital. It's a new challenge every day.
That's great. And then last, what advice would you give to these graduating seniors that are looking to get into this field of work?
Well, I agree with the other people on the panel. Yeah, just never stop learning, because in my field, technology changes, you know, daily almost. I mean, they buy a new piece of equipment. It's totally different than the old piece of equipment. You have to learn how to test it, how to repair it. And I mean, we're not part of IS or IT, but networking is a huge thing. I would really take classes on that because everything's getting networked, everything in the field.
Great. All right, students, we have about 5 minutes. So this is your time. I'm fine with somebody raising their hand and unmuting if they want to ask a question of any of the panelists. You can ask a question in the chat. Okay, so we have one from Nate. What is the best option, a 4-year university or community college? And does community college limit your opportunities compared to a 4-year degree? Anyone want to answer that?
I'll take a shot at it, Heather.
Okay.
I think it depends on what field you want to get into. If you really want to be a skilled tradesperson, it certainly would help to have a 2-year degree in some field, but lots of on-the-job training and going through a trade school would be really helpful. Right now, the skills required, there's such a shortage of every skill in the country that anything you can go into and have an interest in will pay big dividends in the end. We all, as businesses, we all need skilled tradespeople.
Gotcha. And then I have Blaine asking, Rob, how long does it take to become a journeyman?
So Blaine, that's a great question. So you test in, and it's a 4-year program. So you earn and learn. So you test in, you start out at $18.36 an hour, and then you go up as your field hours and your classroom hours go up over 4 years, then your pay goes up as well. You have to do 5,600 field hours and 865 classroom hours. And so you earn and learn as you go through. Great question. So, and a little bit on Chuck's as well. I mean, it's career specific. I went to college to be a teacher, graduated with a degree to teach, and I never ended up teaching a day in my life. And I had a whole previous career prior to ironwork, and I landed here, and it's been the best thing for me. So really focus in and you know, don't waste that time. Narrow that ocean down to something that you're interested in and get after it and go. So good question, Blaine.
That's great.
If I can offer, Heather, a response to the question on community college or 4-year, I think more importantly, and it is dependent on the career path you're taking, and all great responses. And the one other thing I'll add to this, if you're thinking of 4-year programs, I know we talked about this before the presentation, I would highly recommend understanding whether the university, their college, whatever, has a supported co-op program. That's important to have that hands-on experience. Again, it's something that really helps develop as you're learning in the classroom and you're gaining the academic background. You're seeing what's really being done out in the office or wherever that is, the field.
Yep.
That's great. Yes, thank you so much, panelists, for your time. I really appreciate
Hey,
it.
real
Thank
quick,
you.
Michelle. Everyone who's listening in, I think it's real neat if you can see a connection here. So Russ would design a print, or Chuck would design something, and then it all kind of comes together. We all work in some capacity towards the completion of a project, whether it's the design and implementation of, whether it's the fabrication, and then whether it's the installation. Kind of neat to see how just this comes together. So
Yeah.
pretty cool.
All right, thank you. So next steps, students. Next steps are you're going to be leaving this complete Zoom link. You have a new link for the 9 o'clock hour. So you've got about 6 minutes to stand up, do whatever you need to do before you link back in at 9. And panelists, you have your schedule as well. So thank you everyone for attending, and great behavior and great participation. I really appreciate it. And I'll see all the students at 9. And thank you, panelists. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Good luck to the students.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Do we just stay on here?
You can, yeah.
Okay. I've got to make a call, so
I would say, doesn't he have to go into another room?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, you don't stay on here. You leave and then you go back to another one. So go ahead.
Okay, so you want to log in, Rob, on the next one.
Student trying to get a last chat in about shoot down the flyers, like that's